And yeah, Charles was back there in the day training Olympians, training professional athletes. I think he was one of the first even personal trainers there was out there. And he was one of the first guys, I think, actually to charge appropriately for his services. As I'm just remembering back to his episode where he was like, I'm charging you thousands and you're going to pay it. And people started doing that. And, but he was intense. I heard his gyms had every piece of equipment under the sun. It sounds like you better pay attention. It sounds like, he made sure you paid attention to him. But like you said, he must have had to stay with his convictions for years while being naysayed and write stuff and then have to wait maybe 5 years, 10 years for his stuff to be proven true. Is that what you remember about Charles?
Yeah. I mean, he was a perfectionist and a genius, and his job usually was to make Olympic champions. And that requires perfection. For me, I just want to play my sport without my knees hurting. That doesn't require perfection at all. So I'm like I'm Charles Poliquin in my yard, figuring out how anyone in the world can afford to do this. You see the difference? So when I was 12 and my knees started killing me, I couldn't have afforded Charles Poliquin. You see what I mean? But I could have afforded knees over toes guy. So I think if we all in business think about what did we need at our worst? How can we be of service or duty to what's truest to us? It kind of makes it simple. And in his case, he was an Olympic coach. In my case, I'm trying to help dads, moms. I'm trying to help regular people. I'm trying to help people in pain. I'm trying to help kids. The money can't stop people from doing it. So funny enough, though, from all that, I actually would still take the simple approach. Like, if you look at some of the athletic abilities I'm getting now, I'm actually exceeding, no offense, some of the stuff that Charles was doing. So I actually think that more world records could be broken with an even simpler approach. But that's my philosophy. We're all entitled to our philosophies. And I almost think you get to a certain point where you understand a subject so well that you realize that it's actually the simplest basic things that you can go even farther than if you were to get more complex. But it takes someone like Charles living the whole way through and someone like me going the whole way through and being able to just work it up and down to break out, okay, what actually matters. And I'll show you that stuff at the end.
Yeah, it's funny you say. I think Ito said something similar to me when he first trained me at one of his first 2-day clinics, where he said, look, a lot of people have a tendency to kind of just blast out all of their knowledge of the anatomy and all these pieces, but the real hard job is to try to simplify it into one simple thing to explain it to them. So where they grasp it, they communicate it, obviously, and then they embrace it. Otherwise, there's no point. And I'm bet that Charles is probably looking down with a smile, watching what you're doing right now, which is very different than what he was doing, obviously, with a different landscape, with different kind of media, but also seeing the way you're simplifying it. And again,
and I should mention that too.
Yeah.
Super sorry to cut you off, but to make my last statement clear, if Charles is training let's say a 200 meter hurdler, that means their entire job is to go over a hurdle with a certain leg on a certain curve. That's different than being a basketball player. Where I have to go left, right, up, down, back. You see what I mean? So I do think there's a difference there. I'm not saying that I could have done his job better, but I do think from learning from him and him training these really specific Olympic things, I think I was able to figure out for the common person, you see what I mean? For the person who just wants to be bulletproof everywhere, not for like one specific task.